This morning, Adam Schefter reported that Deshaun Watson would be suspended for 6 games to start the 2022 NFL season. So, as of right now, Judge Sue Robinson delivered the verdict, essentially, and Deshaun will be gone for 6 games. I will get into her explanation why she did the suspension, as well as what the NFL can and cannot do from here. But first, I will say this. So, a couple of years ago, the NFL and the Players Association in the collective bargaining agreement, the CBA, agreed to this new sort of deal where rather than if a player violates the personal conduct policy of the NFL, then it would go to an independent judge. So essentially, they would make the decision, and at that point, the NFL Commissioner Goodell would still have the decision whether to appeal the suspension, to either reduce it or to add on to said suspension. I'll get into that in just a second. But the explanation, I'll go ahead and put it on the screen for you guys here on the live stream, and for the podcast audience, I'll read it off for you. This is a statement from the NFL today. They said, quote, we thank Judge Sue L. Robinson, the independent disciplinary officer, for her review of the voluminous record and attention during a 3-day hearing that resulted in her finding multiple violations of the NFL personal conduct policy by Deshaun Watson. We appreciate Judge Robinson's diligence and professionalism throughout this process. Pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement, the NFL or the NFLPA, on behalf of Watson, may appeal the decision within 3 days. In light of her findings, the league is reviewing Judge Robinson's imposition of a 6-game suspension and will make a determination on next steps. So essentially, the NFL is saying they're going to look at it, review it, and they have 3 days to appeal the suspension. Now, the Players Association also can appeal the suspension. They're not going to because, listen, for the Players Association, given the amount of money that they have put in support of Deshaun Watson, they are, I wouldn't say they're thrilled today. This is a very serious situation, but this is a win for them. For the NFL, not the case. And so 6 games, that's what everybody is talking about today. And there's been a lot of comparisons to the suspension of, say, a Calvin Ridley, who gambled $1,500, I believe I read, on games that he was not even a part of. So it's not like he was gambling for, the opponent the Falcons were playing, or even gambling on his own team, the Atlanta Falcons. He was betting on other games, and he got a year suspension, possibly further. Well, I mean, we'll have to see next year what happens with Calvin Ridley. That's a whole other story. But they're comparing it to that. And what I would say is that the NFL, of course, the new CBA, the rules have changed. However, the NFL Commissioner Goodell is still in a tough spot, because the whole point of instituting this new rule is so that essentially it would possibly take backlash away from Goodell. Because let's be honest, he and the league have botched some of these suspensions in the past. You look at, say, like a Greg Hardy, only getting 4 games when we know what he did to his at the time girlfriend, but then giving Ezekiel Elliott 6 games, and there's very spotty evidence that he did what he did, and on it goes. You could compare Ben Roethlisberger. In total, I was talking about this last week, actually, when I was talking about Big Ben's hypocritical comments about these new NFL players. Big Ben, in his career, had 2 allegations of sexual assault, and of those 2, one of those allegations got him a 6-game suspension. And so people are like, okay, timeout. The math does not work here. 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in this situation. Big Ben gets 6 games for 1 allegation. Deshaun Watson gets 6 games for more or less 30. 26 have filed civil lawsuits, and he has settled with 23. This is after Deshaun Watson said, throughout this legal process, I am looking to clear my name. I will not settle with these women. Because the whole point is not about money, blah, blah, blah. It's about clearing my name from these very serious allegations. Yet, he settled with the vast majority, with 23 of the women. We know about the New York Times report from a few months ago, saying that Deshaun had contacted over 60 massage therapists over a 17-month span, that the Houston Texans had something to do with it. They settled with the women, the Texans did. So you have all of these variables coming into play. And this is why I said, look, I don't know for a fact if Deshaun did or did not do what he did. I know the evidence that we have to this point. I do know that of the numerous civil lawsuits. But my thing was this: if I'm the National Football League, who now has the power, they can appeal the suspension. They got 72 hours essentially to do it. 72 hours, dating back to this morning. Given all the baggage that comes with Deshaun Watson, given obviously he did not play last year because he was requesting a trade out of Houston. He probably would have got suspended even if he wanted to play last year. Given the massage therapist, given the fact, and I'm about to read Judge Robinson's explanation for her decision, but there is a quote unquote clause in the suspension. And don't tell me that this is not a little shady, that Deshaun Watson cannot contact outside massage therapist. It has to be within the Cleveland Browns. You can't tell me that's not at least a little suspicious, at least a little, if not very disturbing. So, and I was not able to get the graphic up on the live audience, so I'll just read it to you off my phone. This was Judge Robinson's decision. It's a little long, so hang in there with me, but this is it. A demonstrative exhibit used during the hearing indicates that since the revisions to the policy from 2015 to date, by far the most commonly imposed discipline for domestic or gendered violence and sexual acts is a 6-game suspension. Okay, so she is saying that an act involving, again, gendered violence and sexual acts is a 6-game suspension. Only 2 players have been suspended for 8 games, one for multiple incidents of domestic violence and the second for the assault of multiple victims. A single player has been suspended for 10 games for multiple incidents of domestic violence for which the player pled guilty to battery. It is undisputed that Mr. Watson's conduct does not fall into the category of violent conduct that would require the minimum 6-game suspension. It likewise is undisputed that prior cases involving nonviolent sexual assault have resulted in discipline for less severe than what the NFL proposes here, with the most severe penalty being a 3-game suspension for a player who had been previously warned about his conduct. I am bound by standards of fairness and consistency of treatment among players similarly suited. The NFL argues that consistency is not possible because there are no similarly situated players. By ignoring past decisions because none involve similar conduct, however, the NFL is not just equating violent conduct with nonviolent conduct, but has elevated the importance of the latter without substantial evidence to support its position. While it may be entirely appropriate to more severely discipline players for nonviolent sexual conduct, I do not believe it is appropriate to do so without the notice of extraordinary change this position portends for the NFL and its players. Similarly, the concepts of unfairness and selectivity demand notice in this case. Although I have found Mr. Watson to have violated the policy, I have done so using the NFL's post hoc definitions of the prohibited conduct at issue. Defining prohibited conduct plays a critical role in the rule of law, enabling people to protect the consequences of their behavior. It is inherently unfair to identify conduct as prohibited only after the conduct has been committed, just as it is inherently unjust to change the penalties for such conduct after the fact. As I've noted above, the NFL is a private organization and can operate as it deems fit, but the post hoc determination of what constitutes the prohibited conduct here cannot genuinely satisfy the fairness prong of the standard of review or justify the imposition of the unprecedented sanction requested by the NFL. That is her explanation. Essentially, what she is saying is that she's saying like the NFL's talking about, okay, this is an unprecedented, sort of situation. 30 allegations of sexual assault and misconduct. So the NFL saying we have never seen this before. She is saying that, okay, but given how your rule is constituted, this is why I'm giving him 6 games, because part of the explanation was non-violent behavior. Okay, so a lot to unpack there. My takeaway is this. Not from the legal side. I'm going to leave that to Judge Robinson and others who know the legal side well. For the NFL, Roger Goodell's job as the commissioner of the National Football League, just as is the job of every commissioner of every league, is to grow it, build it, make it more popular. This is why I said I do think Goodell is better than people give him credit for, because I think he has grown the NFL in numerous ways. I mean, look at now. Thursday Night Football is not going to be on the NFL Network anymore. It's going to be on Amazon. So expanding it to streaming platforms. So Goodell's done it. I mean, you look at the ratings of the playoffs. It's crazy. I mean, last year, I've read the stat numerous times. 91 of the top 100 TV broadcasts last year, 2021, were NFL games. It's a very popular league, clearly. The NFL runs television. Part of Roger Goodell's job also, again, is to market the league. And it is difficult to market a league, more specifically a team like the Cleveland Browns, who have a quarterback, the starting quarterback, a star quarterback, very good player, with these type of allegations. This is why I said I would suspend him for a year. Because, A, you get to possibly find more evidence over the following 6 to 9 months. You get this dark cloud off the Browns, maybe not completely off the Browns, but off the league in general for the 2022 season. And 3, the NFL's highest growing demographic is women. Women now more than ever are watching the NFL. It's not a great look, okay, to have a guy out there playing, given the not just the severity of the allegations, and I will not read, some of what these women are alleging. You could read it for yourself. It is extremely graphic, but also the volume. 30. Big Ben had 2. We're like, wow, 30. Whole different story. Do I think the NFL will appeal? Yes, I do. Will it hurt their position later down the road, possibly in the CBA negotiations? Yes, because the whole point of putting this new rule in the CBA was so that the NFL the commissioner more specifically, was not involved completely, at least as much as he used to be, in these type of decisions in terms of the NFL's personal conduct policy. And so you would almost be contradicting the rule when a high-profile case like this happens. But I don't think you have a choice if you are Roger Goodell. So I think they'll probably appeal it to minimum 8 games, maybe 10. And we'll see how that plays out from there over the next month. But we do know Deshaun Watson is going to participate in training camp. We assume probably some in the preseason. So we'll see how it plays out with the Browns. As it is right now, his first game would be about mid-October on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. His first home game would be on Monday Night Football against the division rival Cincinnati Bengals. And so once we get to that point, week 8, the NFL cares about public opinion. We know this. They absolutely care. And think about Deflategate, by the way. The whole controversy that was Deflategate. The NFL wanted to, the public opinion was not pro-Patriots. It was not pro-Tom Brady, if you remember. So the NFL really didn't have a choice but to hold firm to their position. But then we find out late last year, it was like November, December of last year, that there were numerous games in the 2015 season, the following season, following Deflategate, in which footballs were, that the PSI was identical to that of the Patriots footballs for which they got in trouble. And the NFL didn't tell anybody. They care about public opinion just like any major business. They are absolutely going to appeal the suspension. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll see. But it's going to be within the next 3 days because it's got to be within the next 3 days. That's the rule. But this is definitely not the end of this whole situation. We will continue to follow it. The legal side, again, I will defer to legal experts. But again, I don't see how you couldn't give him a season. Now the NFL can't, appeal and say, we want the season. Okay. After the ruling of 6 games, they're going to have to come to some sort of compromise. 8 games, 10 games-ish. I'd say it will get bumped up to 8. That's my prediction. I think it will get bumped up to 8 games. That's just what I think is going to happen. But it is a layered situation, and we'll see how it plays out. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.